Heavy Cardboard, Episode 75, The Colonists. Coming to you from the calm before the storm that is home of HeavyCon, Denver, Colorado. Welcome to Heavy Cardboard, where we talk medium and heavy strategy board games, war games, 18xx, and other related topics in the board gaming hobby. We're your hosts. I'm Edward.
And I'm Amanda. So, big week, Edward.
Yeah, I'm fun employed. Woo! Yay! So things came to a head last week, or I guess a week ago last Friday. That was pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back. So last Tuesday, or I guess it was a week ago last Tuesday by the time you guys hear this, I put in my resignation. We agreed to part ways immediately due to the lack of workload. And, well, for the last few days, I've been, I guess the best word to call it is adjusting, I think.
Yeah.
If you didn't listen to last week's Metamorphosis Pod Blast and want more details, I'd say go check it out. I don't want to rehash it all here. I'm just going to mention a couple of things. First off, I did not quit my job to produce Heavy Cardboard full time. I just left a toxic environment, and this just happens to allow me to produce content full time, at least for a couple of months. At that point, we need to decide if Heavy Cardboard can become a full-time occupation. More on that down the road.
Yeah.
We'll hit on that later. So what does this mean for y'all? Well, the good news is this means a whole lot more extra content coming post-HeavyCon, both in podcast variety as well as video variety. So keep an eye and an ear out for that. HeavyCon's going to be here in a couple of days.
Yes.
Well, really for us, it's going to be here in a day because the day before HeavyCon actually is, prep day.
Right.
Go set up, do all that, get everything transported.
Move into the hotel.
Exactly, right? So a lot of, last minute packages are hopefully arriving from the supporters that are supposed to be supporting.
That are taking some time.
Yeah. Oh, well, lessons learned here. Anyway, no, it's going to be a really great time. Really excited. Folks are getting excited both in the Slack channel as well as just on Twitter
Right.
and in the guild and everything. Just really, really excited for it. Looking forward to it. Basically, other than, some packages showing up, we're pretty much ready for 90 plus elephants to descend on Denver. It's just, I can't wait. It's going to be an awesome time.
It's going to be so much fun. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Looking forward to it.
Yes.
And today, because of the way things have played out the last few days, we hit 200 patrons on Patreon. That's a pretty cool milestone, yeah?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's shot out of nowhere.
Yep, but doesn't mean we shouldn't keep it rolling.
No.
Keep rolling.
Rolling.
Right, yeah, all right. Last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, really completely unrelated to anything else, is really a snowstorm the week before Memorial Day.
Seriously, it was insane. We went from wearing
70 degrees and t-shirts and shorts.
Yeah, to snowboard gear and shovels.
Yeah, I literally had to don all my snowboard attire to be able to go walk Asher.
It was crazy.
He got bundled up, had his snoot on, and and now here we are. I'm back to t-shirts and shorts.
And now it's just raining like cats and dogs all the time.
Right.
But welcome to May in Colorado.
Exactly.
Yep.
Hey, I'd rather it last week than this week coming up.
Yes.
I was perusing Game Surplus's website earlier today, and I saw they added a calendar and noticed that HeavyCon was listed on it for the end of the month.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Carmen is coming, but it still was a nice little surprise to see. I had no idea, so that was cool. In addition to that, I saw some of the new in-stock games that they just recently got in. Roundhouse, the new version of Coliseum, Kerala, The Way of the Elephant. I mean, really, I had to mention that, right? I mean, seriously. Although, it legitimately looks like a clever tile placement game, I gotta say.
Oh.
And he asked me about it and said, hey, have you got a copy? I was like, no, I hadn't even heard of it. He's like, don't get a copy. Okay, Carmen.
Yes, sir.
Also, Nippon from What's Your Game, the 10th anniversary edition of In the Year of the Dragon, and today's review game, The Colonists, all in stock. Couple the new games with the industry's best customer service and free shipping at $90, and you have the go-to online game store for elephants everywhere. Go take a gander at their new site at gamesurplus.com and tell them Heavy Cardboard sent you when you do.
All of the ways to contact us are on our website, heavycardboard.com, and we rely on the generous support from our patrons over on Patreon.
Over 200 of them now.
If you'd like to join the community, check us out on patreon.com/heavycardboard. Our custom table from BoardGameTables.com arrives in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. I actually, if there was ever a time that I was excited that something wasn't coming sooner, it's this, just because we have HeavyCon this week and we don't have time to mess with it.
So it's literally just in time for us to get back from HeavyCon, so it's awesome. We were so excited. Okay, so for those interested, here are the details. We ordered a custom size, 3.5 feet by 6 feet, an alderwood table with a darker stain, 2 single cup holders on each end, a double cup holder in the middle of the long sides, 2 wing shelves for smaller games, and standalone card holders.
That way they show up better for the live streams.
Yeah. Chad and his people couldn't have been easier to work with and have made the process as smooth as can be. So if you're in the market for a custom board game table, you'll be hard-pressed to find a better mix of excellent quality, price, and customer service than with BoardGameTables.com. Go check them out and mention Heavy Cardboard when you do.
I've been looking forward to tonight's review of the 2016 Golden Elephant Award finalist game, The Colonists.
Yeah, me too. So let's talk about the details of it. It was published in 2016, designed by Tim Pools. The artwork is by Clemens Franz, and that's obvious by just taking a look at it. It's published by both Lookout and Mayfair Games. It plays 1 to 4 in about either 30 to 360 minutes.
Sounds about right, give or take a little bit.
The availability and cost, it's about $90 MSRP, but it's currently in stock at Game Surplus for $81. All right, so let's talk about what's going on in The Colonists.
The Colonists is the debut game from designer Tim Pools, loosely inspired by the PC Civ game series Anno. In the game, each player is the mayor of their own village or colony, where the goal of the game is to have the most money at the end of the game via employment of all their workers and building up their village. In order to do this, players must create new jobs in the forms of new buildings, must educate the people by upgrading their homes, building new homes which will bring in more people, and give them places to work, so that you have more folks to educate, upgrade their homes, build more buildings, rinse and repeat, etc., etc. The game takes place over any range of 1 to 4 eras that the players agree to before the game begins. Want to play just the eras 2 and 3? Go for it. You want to go from 2 to 4? Sure. You want to do the whole kit and caboodle, 1 through 4, or just one by itself as a taster? Knock yourself out. Within each era, there are 5 years split between 2 identical half years, where players take a series of 3 actions each. Resources are limited, and storage of those resources is even more limited. Players move their steward or player piece, or possibly stewards, plural, on the variable central board that players build anew each game throughout, each game. They select their actions to do those aforementioned actions, constructing buildings, upgrading buildings, obtaining goods, and more, all in the name of building the best town, gaining the most money, i.e. victory points. After the agreed upon number of eras, players score their buildings, employed workers, and whoever has the most money or victory points, if you prefer, wins.
All right, so let's discuss the 5 factors that give the game its weight, and that we feel anyway.
Right. So complexity, rules overhead. I really think surprisingly little here.
Yeah, the ins and outs of what to do really isn't that difficult. I mean, you move your steward a range of 3 tiles, be able to do the actions on those tiles, and that's, yeah.
I mean, obviously there's more to it than that, but that really is the gist of it.
Yeah.
You move your dude, do the 3 things, next player's turn.
Yeah.
Now, there is some finer points, I guess, that need to be explained in detail, especially the storage versus warehouse versus buffers, and the way how you can spend goods only out of storage versus warehouse, et cetera, et cetera. But outside of that, the rules are pretty streamlined. Now, they're, like we said, I mean, in any heavier game, which this definitely falls into that category, there's going to be some rules overhead. But really, when it comes to the games that, for the most part, that we talk about, I would say that there are a lot of midweight games that have a heavier rule set than the Colonist does.
I could see that for sure. To me, the complexity lies in the buildings, because there's so many different ones. You have to remember to upgrade them if you want to actually, progress in the game.
Right, which brings us exactly to the planning aspect. And boy, as you were alluding to, there is a lot here. This is the game right here.
One aspect of the planning, honestly, is what eras you're going to play. Because I know that, like, for example, Brian, if he knows that we're going to finish in era 3, then his main goal is to get a red worker. Like, that's what he does the entire game, is try to get at least one employed red worker.
Because they progress from green to yellow to red.
Right. And if you can get one red worker ending in the 3rd era, you're probably going to win.
Or at least be competitive getting that red worker employed. Right.
So it really depends on where you're going to end. If you're going to play the entire game, that's one thing. But if you know you're going to end in a specific era, then you can attain your goals towards that. Yeah,
you absolutely, the longer the game, the more planning that there is in this game. Trying to plan out what you're wanting to build 5 hours from now in era 4 requires a certain, that you have to, okay, I'm going to need this amount of buildings or this amount of farms to then be able to upgrade throughout the eras to where I have enough both workers to be able to employ in my storage buildings, but then also to be able to upgrade to turn them into merchants. That requires planning all the way back at the beginning of era 1. Now, I say requires to play well. You don't have to.
You can fly by the seat of your pants, but if you want to play well, you have to be planning from the moment you set your butt on the chair.
Yep, definitely. And however, on the flip side of this, there are some tactical decisions based on how the game board or they're called places, the actual tiles, how those get built out. Because as I said in the overview, that changes every game.
Yeah. I would like to know the odds of having the exact same board layout more than once.
I would say it's rare.
Yeah, it's
highly rare.
Yeah, there's so many hexes and so many different ways to do that.
Yeah, and due to the way that the board gets built out by the first player is going to force a fair bit of that tactical play in addition to the strategic decisions being made for the late game. It is an efficiency game that, just like any other game where efficiency is rewarded, you have to plan your turns. Like, I couldn't imagine going into Roads and Boats and having no plan. The same thing applies here. Getting 3 actions in a row is going to help, from it becoming, for lack of a better way to put it, a tactics fest. And in my opinion, really, this really is where the meat of the game comes from, as far as where the weight comes from. What do you think?
I agree. And honestly, sometimes having the 3 moves, sometimes that's too many. Sometimes you're like, I could only just do the 1 and be okay. But no, I have to do 3. So that means I'm kind of screwed because I cannot go this way, because if you land on a space, you have to do that. And sometimes you just can't. So you maybe just teleport.
You go to a market,
right,
or it may put you out of position from where it is you wanted to be. Again, piss poor planning on your part. Not yours, Amanda's.
The royal y'all.
Right, exactly. Going on to luck, random factors, and there's a fair bit of randomness here, but in my opinion, it really enhances the game as opposed to detracts from the game. So pre-game, you have what colonies are selected, but it's known information before the start of the game. So I would call that more variability than randomness. The biggest thing here being the way the game board is built by whoever the first player is at the end of each of the first 4 years of the era. So the order in which in the the physical design of your village, of the game board, of the main board between the players gets dictated by whoever's the first player. Plus, you don't know the order in which the buildings are going to come out. Now, you do know going into that year what 3 buildings or what 3 places or tiles are going to be available, but you don't know the order of the rest of them in that era. So there's going to be that variability, as well as going back to that tactical decision stuff. And so there's definitely a lot of variability there.
Oh, definitely. And going back a little bit to what you said about Roads and Boats, the difference between this game and Roads and Boats is Roads and Boats has, specific maps that you go in setting up and knowing that this is what the map is going to be.
Yep.
With the Colonists, you have no flipping clue.
Well, you might have an idea, but it could go out the window in the very first turn, and that be that.
Yep.
The order that the market cards comes out each era, and which are randomly removed before the game, it's not a big factor, but again, it can influence some of your short-term decisions. And last but not least, the improvement cards, which there are a good many amount of those, and they're all blind draws. However, they can be mitigated via one of the buildings that can be built. You don't like the random draw? Mitigate it to a point, but you have to build that building. So it all comes down to your randomness mitigation within yourself, or maybe I'm not even going to bother with the improvement, so that's not even going to have an impact on my personal game, as opposed to if you go heavy on improvement.
Right. And I usually go heavy on the cards in the games that we've played.
Last but not least, we have the game length. And I gotta say, this is one of the few games where the game length truly does play a part in contributing to the weight of the game. I mean, it advertises 30 minutes up to 6 hours. And I've heard of games going 8 to 9 hours for the full 4 eras. Ouch.
Eek.
To me, that requires a fair bit of dedication versus, your standard Euro 90-minute to 2.5 hour game. So, yeah, I think we're definitely adding some weight here due to that. What do you think?
I would agree, but to me, it feels good at each player count. I haven't played solo, but I think I've played every other player count.
We have.
And I have enjoyed them all. 2 players felt fast, even though you're doing the exact same number of things and the exact same thing, but it felt like it moved way too fast. Mike and I played it and we both were like, wait, we're done with the era already? Wait, what? But then I played it 3 players, and we played 4 eras. It took us forever, but we had a ball, and it did not feel like 4 hours or however long it was.
I think it was closer to 6 to 7.
Yeah, it took a long time, but didn't feel like it. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, there's no player count that I've played that I'm like, yeah, no, never again.
But at the same time, do you feel like it's adding to the weight of the game?
Well, absolutely, because if you're only playing, an hour game, you're not going to have to be thinking as far ahead in eras. But if you're sitting down to play eras 1 through 4, it's going to add some weight to it because you got to think the entire time.
Yeah, definitely. There is not a single time that I have played either a 3 or 4 era game in which I haven't come away, I need a break. All right, I need to let my brain kind of regenerate a little bit because there went some energy.
Yeah. So
I said last but not least, but I lied. I forgot. We still have Getting It.
Maybe an era. I mean, but I don't even know if it's that long.
Yeah, I'm thinking a handful of turns, honestly. But then, you have the transition from era to era, and then you have the final game scoring. So obviously, you're not going to know those things until you experience them. Right. Although they are pretty well laid out and pretty transparent as to how all that is. But yeah, I would say it's a couple of turns. I agree with you. However, the aha moments that come from maximizing actions and finding the best ways to make sure the colonies, or to maximize the colonies that are in play in your particular game, that takes play after play after play. So ultimately, where do you think it falls weight range?
It's going to depend on how many eras you play.
That's funny because I said the exact same thing. The more eras, the heavier the game, right? Whereas I would say a 2 era game is probably Medium, maybe on the lighter side of medium.
Yep.
No, I think probably
I'd say
solid medium.
medium.
And it can range all the way up to heavy based on the amount of planning involved, which again, the game length.
And honestly, contributing to the weight is if you don't start in era 1.
How so?
If you start in era 3.
Okay, so you're only playing eras 3 and 4, you're saying, right? Okay.
Some of the cards on the back have, if you're going to start in this era, this is what you get. And everything is done in currency. So it's all, it's all the coins, which are points. So you have X amount of points to spend on everything, on cards, on buildings, on everything. But one good thing is that you are just given cards from every era that you didn't play. So you can decide whether you want to build them or not. But I had such a hard time every time that we started in a later era because I would get all the stuff that I just knew that I just had to have, and I would be over the limit. I'm like, ah!
Inevitably, right? Because
Exactly.
there's always going to be more stuff than what you can actually do or want.
Yep. And so that contributes to the weight to me.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, but I think that's a total that's like this hidden sixth one.
It really is because it makes your brain just explode before you even started to play because you're trying to play prior eras in like a minute and a half.
All right. Well, we'll touch on that more here in a little bit because I have some thoughts on that as well.
All right.
So let's talk about the cardboard, the stuff you actually physically get in the box. So starting with the components, a lot of stuff in here.
A whole bunch of stuff.
And overall, I'd say really good component quality. I'm real happy with it.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, obviously, like we talked about, the board's not static. So it's different hexes that you place on the table, and the game needs to be small due to the largeness of the game,
The footprint of it?
Yeah. But, due to this, I kind of wish that the player piece had been just a hair smaller.
Either that or the tiles a hair bigger. Right, because I understand why they did it
absolutely.
the size they did. However, the pawns, the stewards, the player pieces, whatever you want to call them, you have to move them until you memorize what the different tiles are. You have to move them off to the side to be able to see, okay, oh, wait, I need 2 clay and a plank for that.
So I need to go this way and that way, not that way, because
And so you physically have to move the pawns because they take up so much of the hexes. Yeah. So I get that. I totally do. That said, though, thick cardboard, chunky bits. However, if we're going to, pick nits, I guess, I wish the Colony cardstock had been cardboard as well because it's easy to ding the corners of those.
Yeah.
Again, it's fairly trivial. It's really not a big deal, but I figure I'd mention it. The cards are of good stock. They're good core. They're not linen finished, but even so, I haven't felt the need to sleeve them.
No.
Yay, white borders on the cards.
Yes. The player board's also good quality. It's nice and thick, and it even has punch outs for extra storage places.
Yep, which literally plug into your player boards depending on what colonies and what embassies you get, so on and so forth.
Right, and even, you can have your player board set up to where it has the grass or whatever in that area, and then once you get the extra storage, you pull that out and you put the storage in.
Yep. The box size, it's a thicker Agricola-sized box.
Yeah.
It's just under 12 and a half inches, just under 9 inches, and just under 4 inches. So it's about 1.3 inches thicker than your typical Agricola box. That's 32 by 23 by 10 millimeters for
centimeters.
Yeah, that'd be really small, wouldn't
it?
That'd be the tiny box.
Tiny little box. So you could put like a teeny little violin in there.
Playing My Heart Bleeds for You. Graphic design.
Really good. The iconography is easy to follow once you understand, what it is, and I think it could be considered language independent.
The cards, well,
I would say the actual the hexes,
the places,
and the buildings. I feel like they could.
Interesting. I guess I never stopped to think about it, but okay. I think that it's consistent all the way through the game.
Yeah,
they use very typical language or symbolic language,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's a slash meaning or, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the graphic design, they did a really good job on. I got nothing else on that artwork.
It's another Franz work. I mean, his art is always easy to point out. It's clear.
It's Franz.
Clemens
Franz.
Hans and Franz. To pump you up.
Agricola, Le Havre, Caverna, Orleans, and about 482 other games.
Once you know who it is, you'll always be like, that's it.
Yep.
That's him.
You know what to expect from Clemens's work, and I'm a fan.
Yeah, I like it.
I mean, he's prolific, it's consistent, and it's high quality.
And it's clear and concise.
Right, which is really all you could really want in artwork. Anything past that, we get into subjective, but yeah, it's functional, and there's decent form. Yeah. I'm happy.
And plus, one of the cards are funny.
Yes, some, it's funny you mentioned that. Some of the flavor text.
Yes.
It is anachronistic, I guess you could say, on some of it. And some people found had issue with that, which I find funny because whatever. I mean, I find it humorous.
Yeah, I do
Some
too.
people don't. Okay. Often, a lot of people, I would say, don't read a lot of the flavor text. Some do, obviously. We did in this case. We got a kick out of it. You don't like it, it has nothing to do with the game.
Right. It's just flavor.
As far as the rulebook clarity and such, overall, I got to say I'm pretty pleased with the rulebook. I've read it a couple times, and almost all of our answers have been found within it. And thank you. There's a separate appendix with the colonies broken down, individual tiles or places, the buildings, and arguably the most important thing in the entire rulebook and appendix, there's a keyword index. If there was one thing I wish more games had, it was this keyword index. It's invaluable when you're looking up particular rules. Oh, hey, I have a card question. Okay, improvements. Oh, it's mentioned on these pages. Okay, boom. Oh, there it is. There's my answer.
Really
cool.
Nice.
There is a fairly extensive FAQ and errata document on BGG that I would definitely highly recommend folks check out. We'll link to it in the show notes. Most of the rules questions that we have encountered have all been related to interaction with the colonies, the timing of some of the improvement cards and stuff like that. Overall, though, I'd give the rulebook pretty high marks. I think they did really, really well done. It makes it approachable as well. It doesn't read like stereo instructions.
That's good.
So yeah, definitely fan of the rulebook.
And for the setup, teardown, teaching, learning.
Baggies and planos are definitely going to be your friend when it comes to setting up and tearing down the game. We do almost exclusively baggies, but I've seen a lot of people out there that are doing plano boxes, and they speak highly of those. As far as teaching and learning, go watch our playthrough for how to teach the game, or at least how we thought was the best way, which very short up front, and then as things come out, teach it as you go, that type thing.
I'll link that in the show notes as well.
All right. So why do you enjoy the Colonists? I mean, provided you do, it is a Golden Elephant Award finalist, so you got to find something here, right?
I've got to, drag the bottom of the barrel to try to find something. I love
that was sarcasm for those at home.
Hashtag sarcasm. I love how customizable the game is. It literally can depend on how long you have to play as to how many eras you play. And, I like that the flexibility of starting in a later era, you don't have to, it's not a static game. You'll never play the exact same game twice.
Yep, totally. And you can cater it to the available time frame that you have to play. Oh, you only have 2 hours? Play maybe the first and second era, or maybe the second and third era, or something like that. It's, customizable, I think, is a really good word for that. For me, the number one thing is it's just a really pleasing meshing of logistics, resource conversion, tableau building, efficiency engine, and worker placement, although less than you might expect with the worker placement aspect. But in the end, it checks off a lot of boxes for me.
It does for me as well. I mean, I love worker placement games. Everybody knows that. I also love logistics.
Right. You are a closet UPS worker. I understand
I
that.
certainly am. Having a goal in mind to get to, and that's kind of a recipe fulfillment ish type thing, which some of the cards, the improvement cards, are recipe fulfillment.
I suppose so. You need this, and this to
be
make
able
this.
to build. Yeah.
Okay. I'll buy that.
Yeah. And rule breaking cards are always awesome.
And we hit on this during the what contributes to the weight, but the game forces you to look ahead and then look ahead some more and then plan and plan and plan. And I'm a strategist. I enjoy the strategery that this game forces upon you. And folks that know the show know I like long-term planning. I enjoy my tactics, but I much more prefer, okay, how am I going to get to step Q? I have to do all these others. All right, let me see if I can keep this all straight in my head. And I enjoy that mental exercise that the colonists provide. I dig building the game board itself during the game. It forces you to either adjust if you're not the first player or to balance potentially early game needs and long-term wants. So, or vice versa, early game wants, late game needs. How do you place it? And if you're not the first player, maybe you didn't care about it. Well, then you made the decision. You're going to have to adjust to that. And I like how that layout, with it going back to the variability and the customizable nature of the game, it's never the same. You're always having to adjust on what you want to do and what you need to do.
You really are. And even if, one of the buildings that's going to be coming out, if you see that that's one building that you absolutely must have, you have to snipe the first player.
I wouldn't say have to.
You have to, so that you can place it exactly where you want it. Because if someone else gets it, it's going to, it might not be where you want it, and it's going to make it even more difficult for you to get there.
I agree with making it more difficult, but it's not a necessary thing.
Depends on the building.
All right. Different strokes, different folks. So worker placement, but not totally tactical, with stringing together the 3 turns in a row. And so it's not a huge slog fest of I went, you went, go. Okay, finally I get to take another. No, you get to chain together 3 actions. I like that you can't camp a spot. The fact that, okay, wherever you started, you must end on a different location so that you cannot camp. There is a rule-breaking ability of that. If there's a certain colony in the game and you get to a certain level within that colony, that you can have multiple stewards or multiple playing pieces out there, in which then you're not obligated to move both of your pieces or multiple pieces. So therefore, you can camp and you can cost players that fee.
Yeah. The fee depends on each round. It depends on what area you're in. Sometimes it starts out being very small and gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Although, even with it being real small, you don't have as much resources or as many resources at the beginning of the game. So that small fee still is significant to you because, oh, wow, I don't have a food and a building resource.
Yeah, it's always a building resource and a food and a tool, or just varying numbers of those things each era. And it feels epic, not only to the amount of time you spend playing it, but the scope of where you start from the very beginning to when Era 4 ends is just massive.
And it kind of gives you that progression feeling. You can see the progression in your colony that you've built. And on that note, a feeling of, growth as you build up your colony and begin to interact with the other colonies via the embassies, albeit abstractly, but at least you can see that growth and that progression.
Absolutely.
That adds to that epicness, right? The limited storage and how that works is a puzzle in and of itself, and it can be a serious point of frustration, or it could be a serious, enjoyable puzzle to decipher.
It depends on what's going on right then.
And what it is you're trying to do. Oh, hey, look, what I'm trying to do, I want to maximize my efficiency. I want to build 3 of those buildings. That requires 9 storage. I only have 8 storage. All right. Let me go backwards now. How do I get more storage? Okay, I have to get storage before I can get all those resources, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And I love that that mental juggling that you have to do and keeping track of everything in your head. And then, okay, stay on target, stay on target, stay on target. We haven't even talked about the special ambassadors and how those can be utilized depending on what colonies are out.
Yes, like the one that allows you to have another steward out there, or the one where the altruist, perhaps?
Yep, to where he just gives you extra stuff, or you don't have to pay as much when you're building some of these. And the ability to be able to move it, if both you and I have the access to the altruist, maybe I move him in a location to where it doesn't necessarily, I didn't really need him this turn, but I know you do.
Right, you're trying
so
to hinder me.
I'm going to move that further away for you and make it harder for you. So while there's not a ton of player interaction here, there is some as far as that goes.
Oh, there definitely is with that, and also with landing on spaces that other people are already on, like you talked about earlier.
That fee,
yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
There are a handful of different strategies out there, employing level 3 or the 3 levels of workers, money generation, whether you want to go into pubs and theaters and stuff like that. Plus, then, as you mentioned earlier, the improvement cards give you a viable strategy, or you can just choose to ignore them if you want.
You really can. There's many different ways to do things, and I usually go the money route, the pubs, the casinos, the theaters, and there have been games where I've ended with 60 points just in money, not even buildings at all.
Right, and then adding on your buildings on top of that. So you had talked fairly extensively on starting in a later era. It's not going to save a lot of time. Like you're not saving a lot of time by. So let me put it to you this way: if you choose to skip era 1, you're going to have an allotment of points in which you can spend. And I love that the game allows you to build up your village as if you'd been playing those earlier eras. It kind of scratches that same itch as building a character in, if you're into RPGs,
I could see that.
Or in video game RPGs like Skyrim, Horizon, anything like that, spending your experience points to level up certain things. And that really is kind of what you're doing. You're leveling up your own colony, your own village, and where to allocate. And I like that. That's just fun to me.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day playing Final Fantasy Tactics and spending hours trying to figure out what spells to get and what things to get for my characters. And I thoroughly enjoy that. And that is one of the most special things about this game, I feel like.
I honestly never even put 2 and 2 together. I never thought about it that way, but that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. And I love that aspect.
Yeah, that's really cool.
A lot of people, and I tend to agree that once you've got a number of games under your belt, maybe the first era can be you can skip that and allot your points that way. Some people would say that you could do it in the second era as well. But the point is it gives you that flexibility. And I really think this is a really special aspect of this game that I really, really enjoy.
It's a very cool aspect of it.
And it's, last but not least, it's surprisingly accessible for folks not really accustomed to heavier games. There's an introductory game. There's a walkthrough. There's a lot of, and the way the rulebook is written, it makes it accessible. And I feel like the time frame that it advertises, 6 hours, and there's some people that'll play it 8-9 hours if you're playing all 4 eras. That's going to obviously scare off some people.
Yeah.
However, the fact that it's modular and you can only, you want to just play era 1 just to get your feet wet and then we can go from there? Sure. Okay, great. Anybody can play that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's totally doable. So I love that there is a built-in stepping stone if you wish to use it as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can if you have a friend coming over and they know that you play games because you talk about them all the time and they want to play one, bring out the Colonists with the introductory game. That's perfect.
Yeah, I think that'd be totally fine.
Absolutely.
All right, on the flip side. So my first one is a question for you, Amanda.
Uh-huh.
Does it play too long? Like, we're talking if you play the whole kit and caboodle, is longer better?
I don't necessarily think longer is better, but as I said before, the game flows so easily and quickly unless you have, an AP prone player. It really doesn't feel the length of the game. You may have sat there for 7 hours, but it doesn't feel like it. You don't feel like you have been playing for that long because you're having so much fun and things are moving at such a quick pace that you don't feel like you've been there forever.
All right, so another question for you. How much emergent gameplay is there? I mean, really, you're taking this, you're turning it into that, and then you're doing it again. It's optimization regardless of what colonies are on the board. So ultimately, it's an optimization game.
Oh yeah.
If you're not a
I can understand that. You are consistently doing the exact same thing, just with different pieces. Like you're making, first you're making things with wood, then you're making it with stone, then you're making it with, you're making it with different things, but you're always upgrading. You're always doing new things. You're always educating your people. You're doing the same things, just in different ways. So yeah, I can see how it might not be considered emergent. Absolutely.
Right. And so that's one of the more I play it, that's the question I keep finding myself asking is there emergent gameplay? Is there something here that I want to continue to explore? And to go back to the thing that sticks in my head from the interview with Cole Worley was, are they interesting questions that are being asked? I still haven't resolved that answer or the answer to that question yet myself. And I'm, almost a dozen plays into this, but I find it interesting that, you are kind of just doing the same thing over and over and over, but with different, there's an escalation, but ultimately it is the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like in a video game, whenever you're level 1 and you're hitting a rabbit and WoW for, 1 hit point and killing it, that's one thing. Then whenever you're level 110 and you're hitting a monster for 750,000 hit points.
It's still the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's just a level grind, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
It causes AP and players that don't normally have AP. I am so AP prone in this game, and I'm normally not.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help that the board is continually growing and giving you more and more choices. And it's just, I could do this, I could do this.
Yeah.
But again, that goes back to that whole planning. Did you plan to do that? Why the hell are you thinking about that?
Right.
You didn't plan for that.
Exactly.
Stay on target.
Right.
However, not all of us have that discipline, myself included.
So if you're playing with someone that wants to make sure they maximize every single solitary action,
it's going to be a 9-hour game if you're playing the whole kit and
you're going to be there for
yeah.
a couple of days.
Fighting for first player to place the tiles is nice. And here I disagree with you, Amanda, that I just don't feel like it's vital. It's nice. It's a nice perk. Yeah, I would like to be able to place this stuff where I would like to. But if you place it over here versus over there, I'll make do. So I wonder how much of an impact that really plays in the game and whether or not it's a necessary thing, or could it have been just, okay, after this half year, just pass it around.
It really depends on the game that you're playing and the specific players that you're playing with, because I've played games where it never moved. And
okay.
then
because players didn't care, right?
And then I've played games where every single year, every single era, every single year it changed every single time.
Was that intentional, or was that, I'm here, okay, fine, I got to do something on this place?
Not at all. It was because something came out that they wanted to make sure that they got on there, or they wanted to make sure that they got 2 back-to-back actions because maybe they were last and then they wanted to go first immediately after.
Interesting. Okay, so again, variability. Yep. It depends on the game makeup.
Yep. And there is just so much stuff in this game. The box is filled to the brim. It's near bursting.
So you have this down on the negative side of the column. How so?
Setting up the game for a 4-hour game, it takes a while because there's just so many buildings and so many things that you have to set up and resources and everything. And I mean, we've actually taken to using the same jewelry displays that we use for 18xx tiles for all the chits to organize them for play, because it just makes it it makes them easier to sort and makes it easier for you to just be able to pick up a whole tray and give it to the player across from you.
Good point. Yeah, there is a ton of stuff, and I definitely, I mean, we've harped on this in other Uwe games in the past that is more better, and here it's necessary, regardless of how many players you're playing. It's can be a bit tedious if you don't have the right storage
solution. Lack
of interaction. There are ways to get around the fee if going where players go. There are ways around that.
Yep.
So how much interaction is there really here? There's really not much.
There really isn't.
And that is the biggest shortcoming, in my opinion, of this game. That you're doing what you're doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. Who does it better? Isn't that really what we're doing here?
It's multiplayer solitaire. I don't mind it, though.
Okay. All right. Well, different strokes, different folks.
Absolutely.
All right. 4-player game, or is it only a 2 or 3-player game?
No, I'd say all player counts.
Really?
Yeah.
And here I disagree again.
All right.
I think it plays too... Again, this is going to be dependent on how long of a game we're talking.
Uh-huh.
Everybody that's listening knows we don't mind longer games, obviously. However, I think the game overstays its welcome in a pretty big way at 4 players. Much like my all-time number 1 game through the ages. So it's not a deal breaker, obviously, for me.
Right.
But yeah, 2 or 3 players, I'm all set. Or even solo, I'm all set. I'm good there. But anything more than 3, yeah, that's... You are more than welcome to play it with the rest of our group. 4, I'll go do something else.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'll wash my hair.
Okay.
And this is kind of a bummer. This isn't a fault of the game. This is a missed opportunity, in my opinion. The fact that there is no spatial consideration given a la or at Labora for where you place your buildings on your tableau. It literally has zero meaning or impact.
Right.
If I place it over here in the top left or I place it down here in the bottom right, it literally does not matter. That's a missed opportunity. There could have been another layer here to be able to add that spatial and adjacency rules and benefits potentially that just wasn't here.
I mean, like Small City, for example.
Or sure. I mean, or at Labora is the big one that a lot of people compare this to. Small City, I could totally see this. Like, you got to have this or this. I think that might be a little too constricting, but still something to bring in a spatial aspect.
Right.
And you're talking to somebody who isn't super keen on spatial games, but I feel like, why does it matter where I put it? It's just a missed opportunity, I feel like.
Okay, that's understandable. I never thought about that, but sure, now that you mention it, yeah.
The storage and the buffers of the resources, not only the mechanics can get fiddly of it, but the actual physical pieces of it can get fiddly. Again, going back to Roads and Boats, which is arguably the most fiddly game in existence that we have played, we don't mind that. However, we figure we would mention it here.
Yeah.
And the intricacies of being able to spend goods from your storage only, not from your buffers. To get stuff from your warehouse to your buffers, you have to put it in a storage first, then you can spend it. And so it's just, is it needlessly, is it the epitome of complexity for complexity's sake? I enjoy that puzzle aspect, but I definitely can see that there are definitely going to be a number of players out there that or I can see some people not enjoying that aspect of the game.
And in a lot of the games that I've played, it's just you forget to do it, so you just do it really quick. Like you move stuff from your buffer to the warehouse or the storage from the warehouse, or whatever. You do that really quick, and then you do whatever it was that you were going to do. You just kind of skip over that rule.
So you follow the rule, you just did it in the wrong way. Oh,
exactly.
Wait, yeah, I had to do this first.
Exactly.
Okay,
now, if you don't have the option, if you don't have that option available to you, then you're not allowed to do that.
Okay,
but
gotcha.
If it's something that you should have done, that you could have done, I just let you do it. That's
all
fine.
Right. So the last 2 things are things that we've already mentioned. It's got a big footprint for the table, especially in the longer, the bigger game. And as mentioned before, the small tiles for the game board really aren't ideal. I would have just liked them another quarter-inch bigger,
Yeah.
I think would have, but then again, we just mentioned it has a big footprint.
Exactly.
It's not getting smaller.
So in my opinion, the pawns, the player pieces should have been smaller, not the hexes.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so a lot of folks are going to, or have asked us, you don't like Feast for Odin, but you like the Colonists a lot. Why? What's the difference to you?
The difference to me is that in a Feast for Odin, you do the exact same thing every turn.
Over and over and over.
In the Colonists, you have other options. You have more options. You have more things to do. You have more places to go.
Variability.
Correct. It's not, and the board is never the same. Feast for Odin, it's always the same. So that's the difference to me.
That's the main appeal to me. And the second thing is the ability to start it in whatever era you want, and that customizing your own village right there. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to start in era 3 and play 3 and 4. Well, you got 2 eras worth of customization that you get to do, and solving that puzzle is different every game based on how the layout of the tiles are. And it just makes it, I don't want to only solve the optimization of a Feast for Odin. And that's really what it comes down to, I think.
The brass tacks, the end. Yep.
All right. Summary, ma'am?
We joke that The Colonists is the game we wish Uwe Rosenberg had made. And while that's true, The Colonist is his own animal. Tim Pools has created a fantastic, noteworthy game as his debut. The Colonist is broad in scope, but can also be drilled down into one single phrase. Time-consuming. The time you spend in The Colonist can be long or short, but no matter how long you play, you will feel an epicness, and you will be happy to have spent your time in this crafted world.
Mine's a whole lot shorter, and you took my line. It really is the game that I wanted Uwe Rosenberg to make.
Yeah.
And this is if he's going to go bigger is better direction that he has been trending of late, this is the game. So maybe Tim Pools is the next Uwe Rosenberg.
Maybe.
Time will tell. But all I know is thoroughly enjoy this game. I do have some questions about the long-term viability of the game being a favorite of mine, personally. But as it is, I mean, we're almost a dozen plays into this, and I still enjoy playing it. So that bodes well for me. As far as a rating, we rate on a 1 to 6 scale, as y'all know. 1 is burn it with fire, 6 being a Hall of Fame, and everything else in between.
I rated a 5. We played this as Game of the Month a few months ago, and I would still very happily sit down to play it. It's still very enjoyable to me, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon.
I rated it a 4. I wanted to rate it a 5, but I had some hesitations about the long-term questions that it's asking or isn't asking. I know that there is Mayfair has in their back pocket another 6 eras, or I'm sorry,
4 or 6.
Actually, another is it. They have expansions, let's put it that way, in their back pocket on whether or not, depending on how well the game did. I'm excited to see. I don't want it to be like Era 5. I want it to manipulate the eras that are already there.
Oh, okay.
And I think there's potential there, so we'll see where it goes. It has a possibility to move up or down, but as it is, it's a really strong 4, and I'm glad we own the our copy, and I don't foresee getting rid of it anytime soon, nor am I tired of playing it. So that's a good sign, like I said, after almost a dozen plays.
Yeah.
Big thank you to Mayfair Games for the review copy of the game, and that's The Colonists. All right, you got anything?
No.
I got nothing. All right, so we'll catch you all here, well, since this is coming out late, we'll catch you all in 2 days with Key to the City, London. We'll catch you all then, and by the time y'all are listening to it, we'll be at HeavyCon. If you're not there, maybe y'all should try and come on out next year. See y'all later.
Bye, guys.